Hi everyone, my name is Brady Smith, and for my project this semester, I decided to take a look at the realities of mental health that affects many of us on college campuses. Well, most of us have either experienced it or have seen somebody gone through this, and there is a large number of people that do support this. About 50% of people in the United States during their time in college do experience some type of either minor or major depressive episode. And this carries true around the world as well, as roughly about a third of students have received one of these. And on top of this, it's not just the depressive thoughts that come in. 10% of students have been noted as having suicidal thoughts at one time or another. And this isn't even just people who have, some type of mental disorder. 94% of students have felt overwhelmed at some point, as I'm sure almost everybody in this class probably has over our 4 years here at Queens. And one of the biggest biological issues in this is that the age at where most psychotic disorders are most relevant to occur are between the ages of 18 and 25, which is the peak ages of all of us here in college. So it's not really a surprise as to why our numbers are slightly above the national average, which is about roughly 1 in 5 people receiving one of these kind of disorders. Now, there are a lot of different reasons as to why, aside from the biological, as to why college students are at a higher risk for developing one of these kinds of illnesses. The biggest one, obviously, is just the giant change in lifestyle. For most college students, they go straight from high school to college, which is high school is a very structured system. You're living at home with your parents, and your school starts at a specific time and ends at a specific time each day. You know what you're doing for the majority of the day. There's not a whole lot of free time outside of what you kind of make it. Whereas in college, classes are kind of scattered when out. You can make your schedule to fit however you want to be. You don't have to be at all the classes all the times if you don't want to be. You have a lot more freedom and a lot more availability to kind of do whatever you want without any parental supervision or anybody trying to hold you down as you want to kind of go and explore what is happening in the world around you, because you're experienced to a whole lot of new cultures, ideas, and just personalities that you never would have been experienced to back in your original hometown. And that's also another issue is you're leaving your safe place of your hometown into a brand new city for the majority of the time. So it is overwhelming to try to first just even learn to navigate the city because you don't know what's really there. Plus, you have to find a whole new group of friends to coincide with this new lifestyle, which can be tricky if you don't really know anybody going into college. So you're going to put yourself at risk for trying out more and possibly dangerous things in order to find a core group of friends to stick with. And with colleges, one of the difficulties of living away from home is that you're going to have a much worse diet overall. I'm sure many of you know the food in there is not always the greatest. And that's true for many other colleges around the world. And on top of this, you're also having a decrease in exercise as well. So when you're losing that whole physical aspect of worse diet, worse exercise routine, you start developing unhealthy habits physically that can lead um, into negative mental traits or mental aspects down the road. And then also with that, you're also looking at a change in your sleep pattern overall. I kind of mentioned this before, as when high school you have a start and stop time each day. In colleges, you can either start at 8 a.m. or you can even start as late as like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, or no class at all if you choose to do it that way. And this really ruins with a young adult sleep schedule, especially early on, because you're not used to that drastic shift into like how many hours you sleep beginning at night. Because in college, you're getting to sleep on average about an hour, 2 hours later than what you normally would in high school, even on the weekdays, and on the weekends it's even worse. And you sleep in for much longer because a lot of people don't have classes, so there's no reason to wake up early. And from all this about so from these new sleep schedules, roughly about 34% of college students aren't getting the required sleep that they need in order to function properly, which can lead to the bad like nutritional and exercise habits like I talked about, and the mental aspects like depression, more anxious, you get more wired, you're a little more on edge about everything. And it's just a hard transition, especially when kids don't know about this going in, that these changes are going to happen. So they're not really prepared for what's going to occur to them, and thus they must try to live on the fly and understand what's going on. And that's difficult because they never ever taught that. And schools also don't do a very good job at teaching their new students about what's going on. While a lot of colleges do have a health center that kids can go to talk about their mental health issues or any other physical issues that they might have, they don't really promote it as well as they could. Like when you're looking at different surveys, the most common ways that students actually learned about these resources weren't actually from the school at all. They were from either like browsing on the web, either like their friends told them about it, or they just found a random flyer or an ad somewhere that kind of talked about what it was, but they don't really know what it was fully. And even overall, like 30% of students have never even heard of these services being offered, which is a real issue if colleges are trying to promote, overall healthy well-being for new kids going into them. They aren't giving them, well, they are giving the resources, but they're not fully providing them to the students, and that's not utilizing them as much as it could be. So when you're looking at what we can do in the future, obviously colleges can make an easy change with this. Either have some type of way to educate students going into college. So you could either have some type of seminar at like the mandatory freshman orientation that you go to over the summer, detailing where all the different resources are, detailing kind of maybe some warning signs, some triggers that they should expect going from high school to colleges. Maybe have some students talk about their own experiences and what they did to overcome a lot of these issues. Or you could even have it as a mandatory, like 100 level, like health and wellness kind of course. So make it another QLC kind of thing, where they teach you all about not only how to detect it in yourself, but also how to detect these kind of issues in your friends and your peers around you. Because while it's easy for a lot of people to self-detect issues that are going on, they're not going to be as willing to go forward, maybe because they don't know what the actual resources are, or they're just not really confident in what they're actually experiencing is an actual disease of some sort. So having that peer evaluation and having them find the appropriate resources for these students can go a long way in treating these issues before they get to on a very severe and dysfunctional kind of a level. And alongside of this, there's still that huge stigma that still surrounds mental health. So colleges can do a good job of trying to create an atmosphere, create a culture where they're very open, very honest about what's going on. Students are free to talk about what they see in themselves, to talk about how they're feeling, and try not to suppress any of these things. And the idea is hopefully with some students or some young adults speaking up on like what's affecting them, maybe they can influence others to talk about their issues as well. And you kind of keep that chain going, until you get the entire community to be very just overall more positive about themselves and feeling a much more healthier way about all the issues that they're going. Because a lot of the issues, they're not alone in them. Every student is going to go through a lot of these same issues. Having them feel like they're not alone in this battle can go a long way into one, finding the help they need, and two, actually getting the treatment and getting the right recuperation from whatever incidents may have happened with them. So, but those were the biggest highlights I found in my research this past semester. Overall, I thought that there was an issue going into it, and it seemed like there's a bigger issue than I realized, which is both a good and a bad thing. A good thing that people are starting to recognize it more. There has been an increase in people starting to talk about it more, being more open about things that are going on, which is just going to be a great positive influence for everybody, not even just on Queens campus, but just on college campuses, both in the United States and around the world. And there are more resources popping up all the time for people who do struggle with one of these kinds of mental illnesses. And finding the right people, the right resources to help them as early as possible is just a huge step in the right direction for the entire mental health community. And I'm sure as time goes on, those resources become more and more available, and a lot of these issues may not even exist. Hopefully, I talked about the stigma. The stigma will hopefully end at some point, and people will be more willing to just be open and accept things for what happened to them, and be more understanding that they're not alone in this. So thank you all for your time. It's been a great semester with y'all, and have a great day, everyone.